Who's?
They had the couple. Yes, they had the couple. Yeah, he's so cute.
The couple.
Thank you. This dog, seriously.
We actually named her Hazel after Hazel Park.
Aw, that's cute.
And she has hazel eyes too, so it worked out.
Oh my gosh. Amy, do you have pets?
We live, Jim?
Yes.
Tons.
Well, I'm down to just 2 dogs and a rabbit, but it was 3 dogs and 2 rabbits for a while.
Dog and a hamster.
Reconvene the meeting of June 9th, 2020. We're back from executive session. I'd like to have a motion about the executive session's comments, please. Who's going to make the motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the recommendations from our city council and the outside council in the matter of the Hazel Park Provisioning Center versus Hazel Park, the city of Hazel Park et al.
Yeah, city council, but you're saying it's a city attorney.
Well, I said
Right,
city
yeah.
attorney and city council.
City, that's right.
Yeah.
I meant
Legal
legal
Yes,
counsel.
that's right.
Support.
Any discussion, dissension? Motion passes. Anything else we want to approve from the exec session at this time? None? Okay.
Are we waiting for new? Do I wait for new business?
Yeah, new
Yes.
business.
Okay.
Consent agenda, civic announcements. I'd like to open up for civic announcements to the public. Does the public have any civic announcements that they would like to cue in on? Hearing none. City council have any civic announcements? Closed civic announcements. Public discussions. To the public out there, if you have any comments, it's your time to speak. We have
If I may,
name and address clear.
may I?
Go ahead, speak, whoever's going to speak.
Jesse.
Okay, sorry. I was waiting for the go ahead.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Jesse Robertson, I'm at 23353 Hoover Avenue. Good evening, Mayor, Council, everybody else who is still watching here. Actually, a couple of things that brought me here today. The first one, actually, that's been a bit of the elephant in the room for a couple months now, and I know some people might be tired of hearing of it, but amidst some of the doom and gloom, I have actually picked up some underreported good news regarding COVID-19, for starters. While a lot of the media focuses on some of the big numbers, such as that the US has topped 2 million total cases and over 100,000 have sadly passed away, Michigan has actually been doing a lot better, and that hasn't been getting much of a focus on it. Aside from that is that we're not actually seeing any new spikes in growth, even as a nation as a whole. It's just been holding steady. And that's just been a case of states like Michigan and the like. We've been seeing a consistent decline, while a few of the other states that were rushing to reopen are seeing increases. Think places like Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Texas and Florida have actually now passed Michigan on the list, so that means we're dropping in a good way. And our actual number of cases per day is going really down, especially in the metro area. A lot of the new growth is outside of that. The Tri-County area, last I checked earlier today, there were fewer than 40 confirmed new cases to have started in the Tri-County area over the past 3 days, which is amazing. So there are good things going on. We've learned, for instance, that over time that the cloth masks are actually helpful, and that's doing a lot. So everybody who is wearing them out in public, thank you and keep it up. So for the safety of everybody. And hopefully we'll all get through this pretty well. That actually does bring me over to the other subject that actually is on the agenda, and that was a proposed ordinance to amend the city charter, specifically related to the historical commission. As a member of the commission, it is naturally of great interest to me. I am always pleased and grateful to see when the city actually takes an interest in paying attention to our boards and commissions, as they very much deserve. The amendment is minor. It is still a significant move and deserves to be done properly. Unfortunately, when I read over it, the current writing actually caused me and others apparently some confusion. So I do feel it could use some better clarity. The first part, or just to go over it, the important wording of the amendments, as the actual amendment itself says, one member of the historical commission shall be reserved for a member of the Hazel Park Board of Education or a representative of the Hazel Park School District, subject to the approval of the city council. I actually found like two issues with this wording here. The first one is that it specifies that it's a member of the historical commission rather than a seat or membership on the commission that is reserved, which is could cause some confusion, but more importantly, when related to the second one, is that the use of the word reserved suggests that on a body that is comprised of an indefinite number, although no fewer than 5 members, that there would be at some point where the council would somehow not be able to appoint another member because or potentially because of one of these being reserved.
Well, Jesse, I think part of this, from looking at it, the building is held by the school district, and we're conducting a joint agreement with them to help with the schools being part of the historical venue as well as the city.
Oh, I'm not objecting to the amendment. I'm just bringing up the wording is very confusing, and actually, sorry, because I lost my position. Is it the relation of that is that it could also be interpreted as it's actually, I almost thought the first time I read through that somehow is that one member of the historical commission who is not affiliated with the school district could be somehow bound to someone who is. So I actually had a suggestion, is that perhaps instead of reserved, that the word should be used would be minimum. So for example, to indicate that the historical commission has a minimum of 5 members, of which at least one must be a member of the Hazel Park Board of Education or other representative of the school district of Hazel Park.
Jesse, the reason we made the language this way is we can't force a member of the school board to serve. So it has to be reserved because we cannot dictate to the school board that they have to. What if they say they don't want to? We can't make them. So that's why. Their lawyers and our lawyers put this together.
Okay. Like I say, even still, I feel that it could have some more clarity to that. There was another section as well, was the saving clause, which is pretty standard for any sort of amendment. But this one actually was very confusing to read compared to other saving clauses I've read. And instead of normally that it would have normal saving clauses usually have an indication that along the lines of yada yada, if for any reason this section is deemed unenforceable or invalid, then the entire rest of the in this case charter or section of the charter is unaffected.
Let me just nip this in the bud real quick. The savings clause only relates to the actual amendment. It is not included in the actual part of the ordinance. It's not the charter, it's the ordinance. So
yeah, I know the saving clause doesn't go in the
yeah, savings clauses, Jesse, savings clauses are standard in virtually everything that we have here. So we're going to have to move on now. Okay, if you kind of exceeded your time limit, is there anything else that you have?
No, that was just it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak from the public audience?
Yes, I'd like to say something. This is Melody Harris. I'm at 23303 Vance Avenue. I actually am addressing the council today due to an issue that came up with myself and my family this past week. We had outdoor speakers installed. We've had outdoor speakers for years, let me point that out, but the speakers that were installed were done professionally. We were listening to music, of course, with new speakers. You're going to test them out and you're going to listen to them probably more than you will once the newness wears off. At any rate, my husband was out grilling at 9 o'clock on a Thursday night, and one of the neighbors called the police on us. We were not aware that the ordinance, as it's worded right now, does not have a time limit. So if my neighbor doesn't like the music or feels it's too loud at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 9 o'clock at night, they have the power to dictate whether or not our enjoying of our backyard and music is disturbing to them individually. So they have the power 24/7, whereas I don't have any say as to where I can enjoy my music. More importantly, what we did as a family to resolve the problem once the police were called out, we were not aware of the ordinance not having a time limit. What I would like to propose is that to keep the peace between neighbors that would like to play music and enjoy music, that there be a time limit imposed on the ordinance. Right now, there are several cities, and I looked at their ordinances, where there is a 10 p.m. cutoff, either where the music has to be turned down substantially or has to be turned off completely, which I think is fair. This way, the people that like to enjoy their backyard and the music can do that until a reasonable hour, and the people that do not happen to like the music that's being played knows that at a certain time it's going to be turned off. And I know this is probably like one-sided because it just happened to us, but I've been in Hazel Park all my life. I'm in my mid-50s. It's not like I'm going to be playing loud music at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. We're going to be in bed. But we would like to enjoy our outdoor space. We've spent thousands of dollars getting a patio and fire pit and landscaping added. We don't have wild parties here. I did go around to the other neighbors and asked them if the music was bothering them, and also gave my name and cell phone number, my husband's name and cell phone number, and said, if it ever is a disturbance, please call us, we'll turn it down. The one neighbor that did complain said she did complain, and it was only because I was playing Prince and she didn't like the lyrics. I feel like our police department have better things to do than to come out because somebody is.
Can I give you some can I have my attorney give you some clarification of our ordinance, if you don't mind?
Sure, that would be great.
Good evening. First of all, thank you very much for joining the meeting and sharing this with us. I'd like to share with you that every single person in the city has a right to the quiet use and enjoyment of their property, no matter what time of the day it is. Everyone is entitled to enjoy their quiet use of the property. The reason why there is no hours is because it doesn't matter if it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the morning. People of the city ought not be playing loud, disruptive music that annoys and disrupts the quiet use and enjoyment of the neighbors or the neighborhood. So therefore, there is not going to be hours for that established, because it would be unconstitutional to tell somebody that you cannot enjoy your house in the daytime, but if you have to sleep. So we're going to let the neighborhood play all this blasting music in the afternoon, even though maybe you have to work midnights and sleep during the day. So it's about common sense and courtesy. It's about reasonableness. And it's also about understanding that 24 hours, 7 days a week, we live in a neighborhood. So therefore, we have to be respectful and courteous of that.
Yeah, and I think, if I may, Mr. Mayor, this is Ed Cole, which is the city manager. I think what Melissa said is important, and the key word that she emphasized here is reasonableness. I haven't been out. Maybe at some point I'm going to have to do a field trip out and take a listen to this and see what's reasonable and what is not reasonable with respect to the amount of volume that's being generated here. So we've had instances in the past where it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon and the music emanating from a house or a yard is so disruptive that it warranted the police coming by and shutting them down because it could be heard, 3 blocks away. So I think how these things are resolved best is common sense. And again, we can't.
Notifications too. You give notifications to your neighbors before you have a party, if someone does that.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
what
And we
expect
have done
and-
that in the
and-
past.
And I'm not saying you didn't. I'm just trying to clarify that maybe we, a little common courtesy goes a long way. And maybe
Right.
the person I called on you may have jumped the gun. Yes, maybe, maybe not. Who knows? We weren't there.
Right.
But on the
Well,
other
and
hand,
what I will say
trying
is we,
to be respectful to everyone's rights and enable enjoyment of their property as well.
And I would like
Exactly.
to add something, please, if I may. I
Sure.
think that it's important that people do call if they have a concern to the police and not take matters into their own hands. Not every neighbor is courteous or as receptive as maybe you are if they just come and tapped on the door and asked you to turn it down.
Right.
So we don't want people necessarily taking things into their own hands. If there is a concern that somebody needs some help with something, that's why our police are here and they're always happy to help.
And like I said, I think this is one that when it comes to disturbing the peace, it's kind of like the old definition of obscenity. You know it when you see it, and in this case, you know it when you hear it. So this may be, like I said, a situation where it might require a field trip of myself and the city attorney, or myself, the city attorney, and the police chief to come by and take a look and see what we think is reasonable and what is not reasonable. I know
Sure.
we
And I
haven't
would
been
appreciate
able
that,
to
Ed,
enjoy
honestly, because
your-
unfortunately, we live right on the corner of Vance and Felker. So when you're on a corner lot, not only do you have the neighbors on your right or your left, but you literally have neighbors that are kitty corner behind you and on the right and the left. And like I said, we did go to each of the neighbors. Every one of them, except for the one that called, said that they liked the music and they had no problem with it. Now, I understand that, the one person that had the issue with it wasn't even a volume issue. It was more of she didn't like the music that was being played. And we were playing Motown. So, I mean, I don't know. What we did, though, to remedy the situation, because we're not unreasonable people, we took the speakers that were installed and we pointed them more downward to our backyard so they don't project outward towards her property. And I literally walked down to her corner and had my husband adjust the volume so that it fades out before it even gets to her property. So we are trying to be reasonable with it, but I also think that with the blanket openness of the ordinance, it doesn't give us any leeway to enjoy our backyard.
We can never say that it's okay to be loud, super loud at any time during the day. Because
Sure.
we can disturb the peace at any time during the day. I think what we're looking for is reasonableness and everybody's part here. And that's why I said, I think maybe the best course of action here is at some point for you to give me a call this week, give me your contact information, and Mr. Schwartz and I will take a field trip out and we'll listen to see what we hear.
And the other thing is too, noise issues, not necessarily music. People could be doing construction in their backyard, building a deck,
Right.
or working in their garage. It's going to be a constant noise as well. And sometimes those volume controls, if someone's running an air compressor in their garage or generator, it can make a lot of noise as well. So that's what this ordinance also is fitted to. It's fitted to various concerns that we have. And that's why we don't put a time frame on it, because it's, again, reasonable, respectful, courteousness towards your neighbors. And we all live on tight lots and we all know it. And we all we all live in an urban area where we have to deal with some of these inconveniences from our neighbors, and we all do. And we all share in this responsibility.
Yeah, and like I said, I'll be happy to go over and take a listen. I'll be happy to take the city attorney with me. We'll see what we hear. And, you know, we want to work with you. We want you to be able to enjoy your yard. We want everybody to be able to enjoy their yard.
Okay.
Miss Harris, also,
Yeah.
I just want you to know, I grew up in Berkeley and I know they have a timed ordinance. And when I first was on city council, I did ask about switching to a timed ordinance. So this has been explored before. I do want you to understand that.
Okay.
After sitting down with the city attorney, I agree that there can be instances that wouldn't be covered by that. That could be a bigger inconvenience. So, but I do appreciate you bringing it here because I was all gung ho. I was like, I want those times. And they were like, calm down. Let's talk about why it could be a problem. So, so please know that that has been explored before, but
And
I appreciate you coming.
I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
My office.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak?
Yes, I would.
You are.
I am Shannon Williams. I would first like to say good evening to all members of the City Council.
Shannon, can we get your address for the record, please?
Absolutely. It's 220 and 222 East 8 Mile Road.
Okay.
And I am the owner of Green Acres Wellness. And I am leasing that property with hopes of putting a 500 plant grow in that facility. So I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm not sure if you all have any questions, but I am an open book.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
It's up to mayor and council.
Thank you
but
for your introduction.
I believe they'll be looking at those licenses in 2 weeks. So you may want to tune in then. Thank you for introducing yourself. And if council has any questions, I'm sure they will ask them of you.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Seeing no one, hearing no one. Close public discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That moves us to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, 1 through 4?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda, number 1 through 4. Support.
Okay, any dissension, discussion on 1 through 4? We have a consent agenda. Administrative reports, ordinance amendment, chapter 2.48020, composition vacancy of chapter 2.48 of the Hazel Park Municipal Code of Historical Commission, first reading.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, as we had discussed during the public discussion segment of this meeting, this is an amendment to the ordinance establishing the Hazel Park Historical Commission that calls for 1 member to be reserved for a member of the Hazel Park School Board or their designee as subject to city council approval.
And let the record show that part that was being put into here was recommended by the school board, and we are making a decision whether we will accept that language.
I would move approval of the proposed amendment to the Historical Commission.
Support.
Discussion? Dissension? That's passed. That takes us to boards and commissions. Are we going on?
Yeah,
Not.
this is not under new business.
You can know boards and
Boards and
commissions.
commissions.
All right. I just wanted to make sure.
you're
good.
Yeah,
All right.
Councilman McFall.
So I have a couple of them that I would like to, for Main Street, that I would like to put up. The first one is, I'm gonna probably butcher her last name, but Sharon Abramsky.
Abramsky.
Yeah, thanks. For, to be appointed to Main Street, Hazel Park.
Support.
Oh, hang on.
Can we just do them in one group, or do I have to?
Is she a member? Does she live in Hazel Park?
They own Ace Hardware.
I'm trying to find it. Okay.
Yeah.
Just trying to find the address here.
Yep.
If she's a property owner.
And Frank Ekabadi the third. This is a past application that we already were sitting on. So,
And they was where?
Into what?
Main Street, Hazel Park. Brian Patrick Lane from Caledonia Avenue, for Main Street, Hazel Park. And David Morabito from Perry Avenue for Main Street, Hazel Park.
And also, Mike McCall. Yeah, we're gonna pump it fine if you want to go. So.
Can I make a motion to appoint myself?
You may.
Go ahead. Is that a motion except for you?
Yes.
And do you want Jeff Campbell on as a member as well, and myself as ex officio?
Correct. And that's all I was gonna point for, that I wanted to.
Okay. We'll make your motion separate.
And I'll be happy to be an ex officio. You'll see me when you see me.
Is that a motion?
It is a motion.
Is that a, we go to support?
Support.
Any more discussion?
I have questions.
Okay.
Wait, oh, go ahead.
Okay, so we have a 9-person board. Did Jeff and Ed count towards that 9?
No, they're ex officios.
Jeff, no.
They-
Jeff
they
is a
don't,
voting
correct?
member. I am not a voting member. I am an ex officio member.
So one ex officio.
Okay, so I guess we've got 4 other applications that I did not hear Councilmember McFall mention. Is there a reason we're holding off on those 4?
Yeah, to review them. So it's not that we're not going, that I'm not gonna put them forward. I just wanted a chance to review them.
Okay, so can we, I know we've met most of the other applicants and we all know Tony's Ace Hardware. Can we maybe invite the other 4 to the next meeting? To, like we did with the planning members, to kind of meet them and talk to them?
It's fine
It's up
by
to
me.
you.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, that's fine by me.
Only 2 council members can meet and talk,
Yeah.
Okay.
unless you want to bring them to a full meeting,
I'm used to it. But,
We can perhaps set a study session again, instead of having an exec session, we'll meet at 6 next time. And then the first half hour will be a brief study session to interview any of those members that any member of council may wish to interview.
Okay.
All right, so we got that motion passes. Okay, I'd like to make the motion to, I'd like to make the appointment of Mike McFall to the, what's the word?
Main Street.
Main Street, Hazel Park.
There you go.
Put on there.
No, it's not a conflict.
Okay, now, takes us to tabled items. Anyone have any tabled items they want to talk about? I don't see any. New business, residential grading. Ted Finley's here from Noack and Kraus. Been patiently waiting here, wanting to talk about grades.
Mr. Mayor, this was a result of inquiry by Mayor Pro Tem Alyssa Sullivan and a few others regarding, Amy Aubrey also has a neighborhood grade problem as well. So they requested this. Our engineering firm, Noack and Kraus, is here in the person of Mr. Chad Finley. So we'll turn it over to
Mr.
Chad Finley, come around. This is your life. For purposes of background, Mr. Mayor, while we're configuring Mr. Finley's communications
There you go.
here, we've had several instances in the past where new homes have been built and they have a different grade than the surrounding homes, and it has caused situations where water has pooled either in the new home or in the homes near the new home built. So in an effort to correct that situation, we have requested that Chad Finley make some suggestions, and he has brought forth an entire paper of suggestions, and we'll turn it over to him for further discussion.
Go ahead, Mr. Finley.
Thank you. as noted, we were asked to take a look at the grading situation, particularly with plot plans. And we really were looking at making some revisions to the plot plan requirement checklist anyways, and this gave us a good opportunity to expand on that. What we prepared really was a 24-item list, and really the first 22 items were required in any event. It's something that when we review plot plans, these are the items that we're looking for, and we did tweak them a little bit to update them and make them a little more relevant. The old standards were, I want to say, from the 80s, so there were some items that had to be adjusted and some updates. What we added were 2 items at the end, and really what we see with respect to grading primarily is it's the plot plans we're seeing are infill housing,
right?
And you know what tends to happen is someone wants to come in and build a house. There's a 40 or 50 foot wide lot by 150 feet deep. They build a house and it changes the drainage characteristics of the block. And what the requirements have been is that the builder needs to submit a plot plan. That plot plan must show how the site is to drain. And it's always a challenge in Hazel Park. You know, there's really only a couple feet of grade from one part of the city to the other, so it's a pretty flat city. But it is workable, and what we require is that the applicant show or demonstrate on a plot plan that they can grade their site such that everything they can take to the front yard, to the public storm system they can take, and if there were historically drainage patterns in the rear yard that could accommodate drainage, that they couldn't exceed what was there before. And so we'd go through a plot plan review and ultimately would approve the plot plan. The challenge is that after the plot plan is approved, the builder goes out and builds, and there really wasn't an opportunity to follow up after that. And so what would happen is, in many occasions, the plot plan, the grading wasn't done in accordance with the plot plan. So on occasion, we'd get a phone call that there's a drainage problem with a site. We go out and look at it. Well, clearly it wasn't graded the way the approved plot plan required. So what we're recommending at this point is that prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, that the builder has his engineer or surveyor who did the original work come out and do an as-built survey to demonstrate that the plot plan was built as it was designed and it was approved by the city. And what this does is allows us to have the opportunity to make sure that it was graded properly. And if it's not, then they need to go out and do some work, get the site graded properly, get it taken care of before a certificate of occupancy is issued. So I think that this additional item, as long as that's triggered. So what needs to happen is once the builder's at a certain point, the building department or it's probably easier for the building department because they're engaged with the building to notify, to make sure that the builder understands, look, we're not giving you a C of O until this is done. Because I think what the fear is that if that's not done, that it can be overlooked and a certificate of occupancy is issued without the as-built survey, and then the building department to a degree loses their hammer over the builder. So that's item number 1. There's another item that we added that we noted as optional, and that's item number 23. Some communities require a sealed foundations certification after the basement's built. And the reason for that is twofold. Number 1, to make sure that the building foundation is built in the right spot and it's not encroaching into setbacks before the house is framed. So you have an opportunity to make some adjustments before that's done. The second thing is, and this will apply more to cities that have a lot of grade, where you're doing a very complicated house with a lot of levels and perhaps a walkout, where you want to make sure that the brick ledge elevation is set properly and that the house is set up properly so that the purpose can be achieved. I noted this as being optional. I don't know that there's a lot of value to the city of Hazel Park to have this item in here. We certainly can have it in there. It adds an extra step to the builder, but really I think it doesn't do much to take care of the grading issue. I think the grading issue is best handled with an as-built drawing after the house is built and the grading is done.
Okay. But it also protects the consumer buying a new home.
It sure does, because, you know, really, and he's turned the house over, the house has been deeded, now the homeowner, 5 years later, exactly, and now it's an issue.
Right.
So what this does is one of two things: either the builder needs to go out and fix this, or I've never seen this, but this is the other concern, is that the engineer or surveyor falsifies a grade to get the C of O. What that does is makes them civilly liable for that. So an engineer that does that will be liable for it's a sealed drawing, they'll be liable for it.
That was going to be my question. So thank you for addressing that.
Yeah, so the homeowner will have recourse after, you know, this could be 5 years down the road and something comes up. They have a sealed survey from their engineer or architect that says this was graded a certain way, and if it's not, they've got recourse.
Okay.
How would that affect, can I ask, the certification prior to occupancy by the builder, as well as the sealed foundation certification? How would that affect a neighbor whose property were affected by this if it were improperly graded? Because that's what we're experiencing, and that's what I'm hearing from other people, is it's not the new home necessarily that's being affected, it's the properties that surround the new home.
Right, and that's a good point. So really, that's where the as-built survey comes in, and the foundation cert doesn't do much to take care of that, but the as-built plan will. Really, what we want to see with an as-built plan is that the water is going to an approved outlet, and that you know, when we look at the as-built drawing, we'll be able to ascertain whether that was done or not. But as far as any kind of legal recourse that an adjacent property owner would have, that would really be, I would suspect, and I'm not an attorney, I suspect that would be a civil matter from one neighbor taking another neighbor to civil court, that neighbor then going to his architect, engineer, surveyor, and saying, you supplied me with incorrect information, and passing that along to them.
City attorneys, can I ask, is there any other way, in conjunction with our Mr. Finley here, is there any other way to prevent this from occurring to the neighboring properties? It seems to me that in every instance, it has been a neighbor that has been negatively affected. Amy, you know, Councilmember Aubrey has a situation where it's the opposite. Their neighbor's property was built below grade, so their property floods, which is a kind of a unique situation. But most of the time we're hearing where it's the new builds that are creating flooding in neighboring properties. And I want to really kind of instill as much preventative measures in our ordinances and our building code that we can to prevent that from happening to the neighbors of the residences that are having new properties built around them.
Alyssa, to answer your question, it's very important on number 24 that providing a sealed as-built plan following the final site grading, and no certificate of occupancy can be issued without the city approved as built drawings. So that's the check and balance that our expert has discussed. And I think having these checks and balances available and having that sealed document that this has been inspected and that yes, it is with the plans that was anticipated would be very beneficial for any community, and not only the city of Hazel Park.
Yeah, I think this will go quite a ways to address the problem in the future. In terms of addressing existing issues now, I think we're gonna have to look at that on a case-by-case basis. Some of these issues, and Melissa or Amanda will correct me, or Jeff will correct me if I'm wrong, but these tend to be civil matters between property owners, and the best way that we can prevent these in the future is making sure future builds are at the proper grade.
That is correct.
And, you know, we may be able to work with individuals and take a look at existing situations and see if drains and swales and things like that may be beneficial to help prevent flooding on an ongoing basis. If we can get the cooperation of all those involved there, we can maybe alleviate some of those problems.
Yep. Any other questions for Mr. Finley? Thank you, Mr. Finley, for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, I want to thank the council members who brought this issue up, because really this has been, kind of a forgotten issue that does cause problems sometimes for people who are around new builds. So, and again, it will make us more aware of this, and we'll see if we can look at some plans to help alleviate some of the pre-existing conditions that exist in our community today.
Okay,
May I make a,
thank you. Communications for our department. Oh, I'm sorry. It's hard to see all the way back there.
Zach,
Go ahead.
I just want to thank the administration for bringing in the engineer to discuss this. And for anybody that's listening, that's been reaching out to us about these kinds of problems. Just want you to know, for some of the older properties that are not new construction, that we are continuing to work on that as well. I had a very productive conversation with Jeff Campbell earlier today. So we are also pursuing some solutions for older properties that are being affected by flooding, as well as addressing this issue that we just discussed for new properties going forward. So we are continuing to work on both issues. So I just want to let the public know that.
We need to work straightly with some of the new builds that's currently being built as well, because if we can get them to actually look at their sites and maybe look at the grades. Thank you. Any other comments? All right, I'd like to have communications from the department heads. Any department heads sitting here want to make any comments?
Here, Mr. McFall,
Thank you. Chief Buchholz, obviously. Just wanted to bring some thoughts to your attention that with the current climate and the things that happen in Minnesota, we are doing in-house training at the moment, training videos on the topic. One of the most effective ways of train is through roll call or shift briefing, and we're bringing up topics then, talking about it, and some training videos. A lot of our officers have already had de-escalation training, and we plan to do more of that because of COVID. A lot of the off-site training is stopped. We have been doing webinars. There's some training in the South that hasn't made it up this far that I'm interested in. It's called RITE training, RITE, which is racial intelligence training and emotional intelligence. That covers implicit bias, hot buttons, emotional and social intelligence, workplace harassment, along with entitlement complex, rumors, gossip, and social media. So covers a lot of things. I got an email out to them waiting to hear a response if we can get some type of webinar on that. Also, we're talking to our officers. This is stressful for us also. So I'm checking on them. We're checking on each other. It is stressful, but they are being treated well. So thank you to all the residents that have had contact with us. We're still getting a lot of support from the community. We get food all the time. We're getting fat, but thank you. It means a lot that a lot of people are still thinking of us. It's a tragedy what happened. We're upset by it. We know it hurts our profession overall, but we're doing the right things, and we have good officers here, and we're going to continue to try to do even better.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, I definitely want to commend Chief Buchholz for his leadership of this department during this time. This is a difficult time for everyone, and I'm so pleased with the way that he's conducted himself. We did have a protest. Several of you on the city council were there, as well as I was, and I had a chance to observe Chief Buchholz, and he interacted with every person who attended that protest, introduced himself, asked them if they had any questions, and was there and made himself available. And I think that's the kind of exemplary leadership that we need across this country to begin to restore confidence. So I'm pleased that we have a great police department here in Hazel Park, and I want to recognize him for his efforts.
Thank you.
And all the members of the police department for their efforts as well.
Thank you to all the
Very
police.
tough time.
All right, I'd like to. one more-
Lacey Christensen, and then Jeff Campbell, and then we forgot something in new business.
Are we good?
Lacey's good.
Lacey, you're good? All right, Jeff? Mr. Finkley, I got a question for you, if you'd like to step up for your department head briefing.
Okay.
Put you on the spot. Everyone's getting an application for the absentee ballots in the mail. Would you like to give us an update in the general public about this?
That's a good idea, Mr. Mayor. So everyone who's already on the city's permanent absentee voter list will not be receiving an application from the state of Michigan. Anyone who is not already signed up on that list will receive an application. So virtually one way or another, whether you receive one from the state now or one from us once we receive the ballots in a few weeks, every registered Hazel Park voter will receive an absent voter ballot application. That includes the August and November elections. You can select one or both. It's up to you. You can also sign up for the permanent list on that form. If you have any questions, please contact the clerk's office at 248-546-4064.
Say it again. Sorry, phone number.
248-546-4064.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thanks.
I take to the city attorney. Have any comments?
No, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. City manager, please.
I'll ask Amanda, I think, if she has any from the Zoom land. If not, Mr. Mayor, I do want to bring something up that I forgot to bring up in new business, and that we do have a prospective lease here with the Hazel Park School District that will cover the Erickson Building, also known as the Hazel Park Historical Museum. And I know council members have had a chance to review this, and the administration would respectfully request approval of that lease.
I would like to make a motion to accept the lease as stated and as recommended by the attorneys and administration.
I like to support.
Any more discussion?
May I just say I'm excited to see us finally moving forward on this lease. Very excited to move forward with this. I see a thumbs up from Jesse as well. He's happy.
All right. Any more discussion? Extension? Motion passes. City manager, you got any more comments?
Yes, again, we're continuing to monitor the situation at the state level with respect to our budget and funding. The state is very hopeful that there will be some sort of action from the federal government with respect to some form of financial assistance to state and local governments, and we remain optimistic that something like that will happen. We are continuing to monitor this process just in case something doesn't, and we will be prepared to update you on an ongoing basis about the impact that it will have on our budget. As you all know, Michigan's system of municipal finance remains fundamentally broken, and it's all the worse. And under these circumstances with the shutdown for COVID. So again, we're Hazel Park, we'll find a way. We always find a way, but the potential for economic devastation in the communities across the state is a very real possibility if there's no federal assistance forthcoming. So we're going to continue to monitor that. And again, I want to thank all of our employees in every department, at every level. These have been tough and trying times in 2020, and I'm pleased with the way that all of our employees and our residents have risen to the occasion. And we're Hazel Park. We will always find a way to see our way through this. Thank you. Those are my comments tonight.
Thank you. Councilperson Amy Aubrey.
Want to thank everybody for coming out again tonight. It's nice to see participation, the democratic process. Always excited about that. So I don't really have a lot to say. I know it's been a bit hot out, so please do your best to stay cool. I know it's a little bit more complicated right now because a lot of places are closed that we would normally use as our cooling centers. But I do believe our library is opening. I think it's the 15th, maybe. I think I saw online, which is one of our options. It's a great place to go to cool off. So once these are open, But if you do start visiting some of these places that are open, again, COVID-19 is still there while our numbers are going down, but it's because we're taking precautions that these numbers are going down. So please keep people safe. I am a little concerned, but if anybody needs any fans or anything with this heat, let me know. I've got extra fans. I can help you out, do my best, while a lot of the cooling centers are closed right now because of COVID-19. But again, I appreciate everybody and their efforts wearing a mask. Jesse's demonstrating. So really appreciate everybody and their hard work to bring about these lower statistics during COVID-19. Really appreciate that. Really appreciate everybody supporting our small businesses that are starting to reopen. Some of our dining rooms are open, but you can also still utilize a patio outside or carry out delivery. All of these are still options. So just everybody continue to be safe and be neighborly, help everybody out that you can, best you can. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman McFall.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo Ed's comments regarding the protest that we had. I really appreciate that the chief came out and spoke to every protester that was standing out there. They received a lot of support, a lot of cars honking like they were fresh out of high school, early college students. So it was nice to see that. And again, I appreciate you and other officers that came out and spoke to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman McCarroll.
I just want to thank everybody for coming out. This is an interesting meeting on the Erickson building. And in the immortal words of Tom Selman, if you love somebody, tell them. And if you have children, hug them every day and tell them you love them. Have a great night.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Sullivan.
Okay, I have a lot, but I'll try to make it brief. I also want to thank the chief and the other officers who came out. They were invited specifically to come and talk to the demonstrators that were here in Hazel Park. I think that open communication is the best way that we can really handle this situation. I think that when we don't talk about it, we're kind of reinforcing the fact that nothing can be better and nothing can change. And that's, I think, in every job, in every level of employment across the nation, you can always learn, you can always grow, and you can always get better at your job. So the chief, I think, agrees with that standpoint. And I think our entire city should agree with that standpoint. We can always learn, we can always do better. So I really appreciate the chief, and he and I, as well as some other members of the administration, are really working towards addressing some other issues and concerns and really seeing how we can better address the concerns that this problem has brought up. Also, I want to say thank you everybody for your hard work on the lease for the Historical Museum. I look forward to moving forward with that as well. And I'm glad that I was able to be the one to make the motion to reinstate that lease. I look forward to moving ahead and getting the Historical Museum back on track. Also, as Amy stated, it's super hot. So please, please, please don't leave your kids or your dogs in your car. Please check on your elderly neighbors, check on people that have health concerns, give them a ring, check on them on Facebook. Be aware if you're not seeing movement, just make sure that you're looking out for people in this heat, because it can be really devastatingly dangerous. And finally, I want to thank all the applications for all of our boards and commissions. We haven't approved everybody yet, so we're still working our way through those. And I'm really excited to see people getting involved in their community. And I look forward to appointing more new board members and new commission members. And be safe. Thanks.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank everybody for watching the meeting and enjoying our meeting with us. And I'd like to bring up the census, that everybody needs to go back, talk to their neighbors, ask them if they filled out the census. If you filled it out already, send out an email to all your friends and family. And the census is very important to our government operating, and having essential services to everyone, every resident across this country, and especially Hazel Park. So I'm asking every Hazel Parker to revisit the census issue and let someone know that it is very important and why it is important. It is so we can operate efficiently and provide the best service possible for you in comfort in your home. Also, I'd like to say that we have different day and time compared to what we had 20, 30 years ago. People have a different mindset on how they look at things. And then it goes for, I don't care if you think you do or if you don't, you do. We've all come to a different world, different looks. We all have different opinions. And I always said, we have a very diverse community now compared to what we were even 10 years ago. And it's a wonderful thing. And all those opinions and how we all come together as a family and group as a city is very important. We have to continue to be conscious of everyone, not just the particular neighbor you may like or dislike, but everyone, whether the person pumping gas next to you. If something's going on, you see something's wrong, then you should say something, call the police. They will come there to back you and support you. They're your friend, they're not your enemy. Our fire department is also there to help. If you need someone and someone's hurting or needs support, please, or you're concerned about someone's welfare, call the police or fire department. They will be there. That's what our essential services are there for. And again, you know, there's a reason maybe to protest in different ways. Everyone has a different outlook on it. And I think that there's always room for improvement in every aspect of our lives in every department in which we have in our city. And we just have to revisit and reboot sometimes to make a better community for ourselves. Thank you. Have a good night. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Mayor?
Support.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Aye.
Aye.